Wake up all the doctors, make the old people well. They're the ones who suffer and who catch all the hair. But they don't have so very long before their judgment day. So won't you make them happy before they pass away?
Hello, this is Tammy Williams again, and this is Things of Interest, and thanks for tuning me in. Like I mentioned, this is going to be another part of the Freedom Summer. We're going to pick up just where we left off. For those of you that didn't see what we aired last week, we aired a documentary that has been on PBS about the Freedom Summer, and that is when SNCC, organization that was formed before the Black Panthers, they were very active in Mississippi, trying to get African Americans registered to vote, and they brought in students from all over, white students, black students from all over, to get attention to the hardships that African Americans were having in Mississippi. And so we're going to play more of that documentary that has been aired on PBS about Freedom Summer.
Jail had no money for the go there bail. And somebody said that's Fannie Lou Hamer.
I went down the 31st of August to try to register. And after I had gotten back home, Mr. Marlowe told me that I would have to go down and withdraw my registration or leave because they wasn't ready for that in Mississippi. And I said, Mr. Marlowe, I'm trying to register for myself. So I had to leave that same night.
She has this confrontation, then leaves the plantation and comes into Ruleville and eventually becomes someone who is a SNCC field secretary.
One of the important things about recruiting Fannie Lou Hamer was her ability to move people. Fannie Lou Hamer brought a new kind of spirit into the movement, and I think it kind of rejuvenated all of us.
I've been tired a long time in the state of Mississippi, living in the county with James O. Easton, the senator, Senator Stennis, that go to Washington and tell the people that the people of Mississippi, the Negroes, are getting along good and we are satisfied. But I want him to know this, both of them, we are not satisfied, and we haven't been satisfied a long time.
We've been accustomed to men standing up and challenging the movement, but here is a woman, a black woman, and her message to us was, don't give up. Freedom is not free. Keep fighting, keep fighting, keep fighting.
As SNCC became more active in the Delta, the Mississippi Delta, where Greenwood is in the heart of Leflore County, we started to create visibility around voter registration, and people started going to the courthouse. People tried to vote. They would push them off the land, so they had no place to live. They took away their homes.
You all heard that. People lost their homes because they wanted to vote. Fannie Mae lost her plantation because she wanted to vote. She had to leave the plantation because she wanted to vote. All of this happened. The repercussions to these people because they wanted to vote was just terrible.
The American people there who had small businesses, the banks called their notes.
Even though there were very few people being brought down to try and register to vote, the white power engaged in an act of reprisal directed at the entire black community. What they did was shut down the commodities program. What it was government surplus food that was sent to poor rural areas. The county officials said, well, no, we're not going to have that, which is essentially put black people and poor people in a position where they could starve during the winter. And this was an especially bad winter.
I just keep wondering how they're going to eat and what they're going to wear, because they have no money, they have no food, and they have no clothing. They have no way to buy food and clothing. We have appealed to people all over the United States to send food and clothing in.
What would happen next would eventually reshape the direction of the movement in Mississippi. Dick Gregory was then a big-time comedian, flies into Greenwood, Mississippi in his own chartered airplane, full of food to meet the need as a result of this cutoff of commodities.
Dick, how much food did you bring with you on this trip?
We brought something like 14,000 pounds on this trip here. Canned food, milk, baby food, cereal, wheat, flour, sugar, potatoes.
You had the news media coming in. And soon these pictures were going out all over the world of what was happening in Greenwood, Mississippi, where several months before it had been very much of a small operation with little visibility at all.
City officials denied a winter-long cutoff of food allotments was retaliation for the Negro voting drive. But the sharecropper who tries to register to vote often faces the threat of losing his job and being put off the plantation. Bob Clark, ABC, Greenwood, Mississippi.
It shows us that it's possible to make the country pay attention to Mississippi. Gregory's action indicates to Mississippians that they didn't have to be alone.
The American people only see what's on television at night in the evening news. So where Dick Gregory created a lot of drama and the cameras were there and then it went away, we wanted to figure out how to do that for an entire summer, to invite the children of America into Mississippi so that they pay attention to what's going on in Mississippi. And from that, the Mississippi Summer Project evolved.
Most of the organizers in Mississippi were opposed to the idea of the Mississippi Summer Project, which meant essentially bringing down, I think the number we were talking about was roughly 1,000 students. I was one of the people who was opposed to Freedom Summer.
People in the movement were willing to die, but we didn't want to die in obscurity. So if we brought in students, their colleges, their parents would focus on Mississippi. I supported bringing the volunteers in.
The experience of people like Mrs. Hamer was that people coming from the outside was a good thing. Mrs. Hamer backed me up into a corner and said, well, Charlie, I'm glad you came. What's the problem with having more people come? How can you be opposed? And eventually, we decided to go ahead with Freedom Summer. Once the decision was made to have a summer project, there's a series of meetings and discussions going on then about what the summer project is going to do.
The Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, a militant group in the...
Well, there were three components of Freedom Summer. One was voter registration, which would be going door to door, knocking on doors, and asking people if they were willing to go down to the courthouse to register to vote. A second and very important component of Freedom Summer were the Freedom Schools. They would teach things that were not taught in black schools in Mississippi. Black schools in Mississippi couldn't teach about black history. They couldn't teach about black literature. So Freedom Schools were set up to do exactly that. And finally, there was the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party. It was a parallel political party which basically said that we will send our own delegates to the Democratic National Convention in Atlantic City at the end of August. And we will challenge the all-white delegation to see who would represent the state of Mississippi at the convention.
White Mississippians believed that what was going to happen in the summer of '64 was something that not only they had to be psychologically prepared for, they had to be militarily prepared for it as well. It shows you the hysteria that was evident in much of white Mississippi.
In Jackson, Mississippi, a city of 100,000 whites, 50,000 Negroes, the mayor has prepared for this summer's activity by increasing the police forces, by passing new ordinances against demonstrations, and by purchasing a steel-plated vehicle, a riot control car known locally as Thompson's Tank, named for Mayor Allen Thompson.
We are prepared to take care of any law violations, to keep down violence.
In addition to Thompson's Tank, armor-plated and equipped with 9 machine gun positions, the arsenal includes cage trucks for transporting masses of arrested violators, searchlight trucks, each of which can light 3 city blocks in case of night riots.
The Citizens Council had convinced people that the Klan wasn't necessary, it was bad publicity, and that they could keep schools from being desegregated, they could keep lunch counters from being integrated. But by 1964, when they see the volunteers for Freedom Summer, it was clear that they couldn't. And that's when the Klan starts to ride.
Wow, all that they made, I mean, the trucks, you know, all the armory, all the cells and the cage prisons or places that they created to keep African Americans from voting. It was just about keeping, you know, a restless people who no longer wanted to, you know, be oppressed. You know, the armor and just all the tactics, the psychological tactics, were just created to keep African Americans from voting. So, if nothing else, I want this show to, you know, remind people of how important their vote is.
The Klan rose up as one in Mississippi. One night in April of 1964, crosses were burned all over Mississippi. They claimed that they had 90,000 members and they were going to resist what the Klan called the nigger communist invasion of Mississippi. So Mississippi, on the eve of Freedom Summer, was on a hair trigger.
There was very much a recognition and a debate about, is it responsible to bring all those kids into the state, most of whom are probably far too naive to understand what they were getting into in terms of the violent nature of the place. Are you doing this to use people as fodder? The thought was, well, you know, we'll do this orientation at Oxford, Ohio, and we'll try and tell these kids what they're getting into and make it clear that they really don't have to go. But, you know, I don't know that that really could begin to prepare people.
My grandmother said, we've heard that you're planning on doing something really crazy, going to Mississippi with those SNCC folk. And I'm never going to permit it.
We went to Oxford. A group of us from Massachusetts met in Boston. We drove across, sharing, driving you know, for different hours. We drove straight through, people sleeping. I know I drove very fast.
Several of us drove up to Oxford in the blue station wagon that we used in Meridian.
With my grandmother, my mom and dad pleading, threatening, I just said, I'm leaving. A girlfriend drove me to the bus station, and my grandmother's parting words were, if you leave, don't ever come back.
I remember one young woman saying, we're going to settle this problem, and then it's on to the Indians, and we're going to settle that too. I mean, there was that kind of unbelievable idealism.
I can remember people saying, well, how bad can it be? You know, because they had no idea. And even I didn't think that they might be beaten or killed. And in fact, that was one of the ways that I sort of calmed my fears. I thought that their presence would be a mediating factor.
The SNCC field secretaries arrive in Ohio, and it's, in some senses, it's oil and water. So erupts, you know, one-on-one in different kinds of interactions between the students and the field secretaries.
The need for the volunteers and the presence for the volunteers represented our inability after 3 years to make significant inroads into changing Mississippi. So we had to reach out to this larger group, which was predominantly white.
And many of us were still not entirely comfortable with it.
The tension between the volunteers and the SNCC staff, who was almost entirely black, became evident right away. They were like, we're going to take these greenhorns back to Mississippi and be the tip of the spear of the civil rights movement, and these people would like to get us killed because they don't know what they're about to do. And they're saying, these people look like they're just about beyond hope.
The police are going to harass you. They're going to pick you up on the road. They're going to put trumped up charges on you. You're going to wind up in jail. I suggest we be a little more serious about this thing.
One of the things that was done at the orientation was to instruct the white students particularly that you're going into a situation where you will have to follow the directions of black people. You will be living in black homes. You will have to live according to the way they live. Your life will depend upon you following directions. And of course, these white students had never been in a situation like this.
In order to orientate the Freedom Summer workers, we showed them this movie. It featured Theron Lind, who was the registrar in Hattiesburg, Mississippi.
Theron C. Lind, circuit clerk and voting registrar of Forest County, Mississippi, is one of the most powerful men in America. He and the 81 other county registrars in Mississippi have the power under state law to decide who can and who cannot vote.
Theron Lind is your stereotypical racist bad guy, a big, burly, cigar-chomping, tobacco-chewing, aggressively racist white man.
That's right. That's a section of the Constitution of the state of Mississippi. All right, then when you get over here and answer the question 19.
And the summer volunteers see him and start to laugh.
People coming up from Mississippi were tired, exhausted, suspicious of the summer project. So the reaction to that laughter was hostile. You're not taking Mississippi seriously. You think this is something funny, something to be laughed at. No, what you're looking at is cost people their lives.
And when the lights came up, the young SNCC leader said, "We have to know you, we have to love you, but we don't understand you." They really were furious. And it went on at great length to say, "You're coming out of a different place. I don't know if you should be going with us." These white kids were unsteady vessels. They weren't at all sure that these were the allies they wanted.
They stayed in the auditorium for a few hours talking and arguing, and they really went at it, but I think it really broke the tension. It brought out these underlying resentments, it brought out the differences between the two, and it highlighted them, and above all, it brought out the fact that they were all in this together.
I think it was a good idea that, you know, that the tension was broken and that the white volunteers, the people that came up, and the people from Mississippi, the SNCC organizers, were able to talk things out and really, you know, get everybody's feelings out in the open and try to, you know, explain to them just what they were up against, because it was dangerous for them, and they just it said they weren't used to being in that kind of an environment.
From then on, a lot of the tension was broken, and they realized that they were really one in this, and that they were going to go down and do this together.
At the end of the first week, we got a call in Oxford. People at the Mount Zion church had been beaten up badly, and the church was burned. My husband, Mickey, and James Chaney decided that they needed to go right away to see how people were and to provide whatever support they could. Andy Goodman was going to be one of the volunteers working out of the Meridian office, so they decided that all three of them would go. We were in the dorm room that we had been assigned, and Mickey kissed me goodbye and said, "I'll see you at the end of the week," and left. And they drove down in the blue station wagon.
Dear Mom and Dad, I have arrived safely in Meridian, Mississippi. This is a wonderful town and the weather is fine. I wish you were here. The people in this city are wonderful and our reception was very good. All my love, Andy.
It was close around 6 or 7 o'clock, around 6, 7 o'clock in the evening. And a call came in from the Meridian. People wanted to know they had not heard from Mickey and James Chaney. I just knew that something had to be wrong.
It was early Monday morning, around 1 or 2 in the morning, when someone came to the dorm room that I was using and woke me to say that the men had not returned.
Well, it's starting to get really dangerous for the volunteers and all the people in Mississippi during this Freedom Summer. And just like they warned people, this wasn't any joke, it wasn't anything to laugh about. You know, it was really dangerous. And, you know, I just can't say enough that this is all about your right to vote, your right to, um, to have an opinion or say so in politics and how you want to live. And, we're dealing with that to this day. Our votes are important. If we want to continue to have a quality of life, we think that a lot of the liberties and the things that we enjoy are right, and they're not a right. I mean, they're a right under God, but we have to fight for that right, because there are people out there who want control. You have people that want control, and they don't mind sacrificing other people, to have that control. They see oppressing people, as a necessary evil, I guess I want to say, because, economically, they have people that can provide all the services that they want them to provide, at no cost or little cost, or, they can get all the things that they want done. And, we have to be diligent about our vote. We have to know the politicians and know what they stand for and make them accountable if, they get in office and don't do the things that they promised. But we can't sit back and say, oh, I've chosen not to vote at all. I mean, none of them are good. No politician is honest, or you can't trust or depend on anybody. Or, there's people out there that they get angry and they just decide that they're not going to do anything. But, I want to encourage all you that, haven't been paying attention to the news. I know everybody has. It's really hard not to. But, try to stay up on the news and all the politics that are happening out there. Ask questions if you're not sure about what's happening or why there's a problem or what's the problem. There are some problems. We've just had, right now we have Tea Party supporters, Republican parties, out there are fighting. We just had an election where, in Mississippi actually, where, the votes re-elected an incumbent, but the Tea Party's upset. They pouting like babies because they want to get into the Senate, and do some things. You have to realize what's radical and what's mainstream, and some of the strategies that are happening. It's like the lesser of two evils. So politics are very important for us all. Young people and old. We have to stay up on, our right to vote, stay up on politicians, and, get out there and vote and encourage the people around us to vote. Pay attention to how things are cut up, how, the communities are cut up, and who votes in certain districts and things like that. There's a lot of things happening. But, this is the Freedom Summer, and stay tuned. Next week, we're going to have some more of Freedom Summer. I don't want to edit it out because I think all of it's important. So we're going to have another showing of a continuation of this Freedom Summer program that is a documentary that has aired on PBS. And I want you to remember us. Things of Interest, we come on Tuesday at 8:30 p.m., Thursday at 3:30 p.m. on Comcast Cable Channel 17. And here's our email address if you'd like to get in touch with us. And stay tuned for next week. We'll continue to run Freedom Summer. It's going to get interesting. It is very dangerous. You'll see when you tune in. I don't know if it will air again on PBS, but watch it on this show, watch it on that show, watch it again and again. I'll see you next week. God bless you.
change it, yeah, change it, go along.